Okay.
So see how this thing is far.
All right. So today I'm going to start working on some sort of like predatory land tortoise. And so in order to start creating this creature, hey guys, bring it down just a little bit. Thank you. I'm going to go and start creating a new mannequin, but I'm going to be using the Dynamashing methods that we learned a little bit about last week or a week before last, I guess. And instead of having where I'm going to be pulling out parts and like arranging things that way, I'm actually going to be using multiple primitives to create my initial form. I'm going to build up a lot of that creature initially using these primitives. And then we're going to use Dynamash to essentially kind of meld it all together. This is the method that I use when I'm normally creating creatures. I like just to take primitives and just kind of like smash them together and keep them separate for a long while, because that way then I can kind of go in and make changes as I need to without really worrying about the overall form. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and start off with a primitive. Let's do a sphere. I'm going to go bring this guy in. Immediately, I'm going to go to Edit. And then I'm going to go to Make Polymesh 3D. Now, I don't expect you guys to try to keep up with me. I'm going to be moving through this. So I'm going to try to cover a lot of ground. So either you guys can sculpt along with me, or you can take notes, whichever works best for you. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange my scene. So I just kind of rotated this guy's head around. That's going to rotate this to where I'm looking at the front. And I want to go ahead and turn on symmetry. Okay, we got to make sure we have symmetry turned on. Symmetry is our friend. X. Hang on, she's talking. Yes. So hitting X should turn symmetry on. It should be symmetrical as long as you have not moved the sphere. You got to make sure you have edit mode on, make Polymesh 3D, and then hit X. Okay. All right. For those of you that have artwork you want to bring into Zbrush, let's go over here to Draw. Actually, let's click on this little button right here, Floor. You'll see X, Y, and Z. I'm going to click on the X, Y, and Z. And if you have any artwork you want to load in here, again, we're going to go back to Draw. Let's say front, back, up, down, left, right. These are all of the orthographic views you can work with. We're going to go to Map 1, Import. And you're going to import the artwork into your scene. And there's your artwork. If you want to make adjustments to that, and go back to Draw, Fill mode. I think this honestly looks a little dark to me. So let's change fill mode to 2. You'll see that brightens this up. Fill mode of 3 will draw the artwork onto your sculpt. I'm not going to use that because frankly, I don't think a ETA-2 Actus class light interceptor looks an awful lot like a predatory tortoise. Yes. If you want to adjust it, scale, horizontal. It's right here. Import from here. So it's draw, front, back. Well, really, it's the same for any direction you're going, but I'm doing front, back. You just click on the little icon, you can load it from there. And you have vertical, so you can adjust it as you need to. And then you can turn it off by hitting this little button. So if you want to turn it on, turn it off, whatever you want to do. All right. I'm going to go and grab a brush, do an initial move brush. I'm going to go over to side button or side view. And I'm just going to start pulling out the general form of this predatory land tortoise. This thing may end up looking a little bit like a realistic version of King Koopa. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see what happens. Just kind of a general body shape, smooth that out a little bit. I'm going to go to geometry and let's run a Dynamash just to kind of reorient everything on the body. It also will have Dynamash turned on. So if I want to, I could run it at any point doing control and then swipe and it'll rerun Dynamash for me. Okay. All right, another brush I'm going to be using in this process is an insert multi-mesh brush. This one is going to be eye under the eyes, and then Imm Primitives. Oh, you'll see we have a bunch of different ones. I prefer to use the Imm just primitives. There's an Imm Primitives H, where it's like basically just like a half version of those primitives. But I just use the regular one. And then I'm going to use a sphere. Lucy, you okay? Okay. I'm just hearing like all this commotion back there. So, all right. So yeah, so the insert sphere for me is going to be what I'm going to use to just kind of start throwing in some new appendages here. So let's do, put a little sphere right here. I'm going to go over to move. You'll notice that when I inserted the new sphere, the rest of it turned dark. So if something turns dark, what does that mean? It's what? It's inactive, it's masked off. So I can't sculpt on this piece at all. So I can use the move tool to move around this object and reposition it if I need to. Pretty useful. So I'm going to go ahead and move this in. I'm going to hold down control. And when I hold down control with the moved tool selected, I can duplicate objects. So that's going to be my shoulders. I'm back to draw. That's going to be the base of the head or base of the neck. And then that's going to be the base of the tail that I'm going to pull off from there. All right. Predatory land tortoise. Which would be more terrifying? If it's on 4 legs or 2 legs?
2 legs.
Why?
Since it could.
Is it faster?
Maybe not.
I mean, I've seen some pretty big capable Walmart. I'm not so sure they're faster than the Galapagos.
All I know is that if I'm gonna see a tortoise or turtle first, and then all of a sudden it rises up on 2 legs.
Tortoise.
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 If I see a tortoise just vibing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it sees me and it's like, prey or whatever, and it gets up on two legs and comes after me, then yes, I'm gonna be horrified.
So maybe we should do a two-legged tortoise. All right. So if this guy's gonna be two-legged, then we're gonna need to probably make this tail a lot bigger, and then probably make the front legs a lot smaller, and then have the back legs fairly large. I feel like this is gonna look like the blurgs from The Mandalorian in some way, shape, or form. All right, let's go ahead and go over to insert sphere again. I'm going to insert another sphere right here. I'm going to rotate this guy just a little bit forward. And then stretch it out. And then hold down Control. And then I'm going to make legs come down. That's it. That's the secret sauce. I'm going to hold down Control and make new duplicates. And then make little front arms. All right, give them a tail. And you'll see when I stretch it out and then squeeze it back down when I'm doing that insert, like that, it actually lengthens the object. I do. 9 out of 10 artists agree. Yeah.
So when you stretch something thin, what's the tool you use to make it like, thick? Like add thickness to it after you made it thin?
Scale.
How do you duplicate something?
Hold down Control with the move tool selected and just move it and I'll duplicate it. See? Okay. Let's do the feet. I'm gonna do some big old spherical feet. So I feel like this guy's gonna have like really like thick, chunky, like grandma legs here. But the feet need to be flat on the bottom, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna hold down Control Shift. Let's go back to draw, Control Shift. And I'm gonna actually slice the bottom of the spheres off. So I'm gonna go to Knife, Rectangle right here. Control Shift again. And then just cut off the bottoms. I'm gonna start making some more pieces for that neck. I feel like this thing probably like keeps its head in its shell and then like it's like chasing after stuff and then like that head just like shoots out and grabs things and like drags it back in the shell. Yes, very terrifying.
For some reason, I can't find the scale tool.
It's just on your main gizmo. It's this guy right here. Yeah, it's all combined into one thing. All right, I'm gonna do an append. I want to make a new subtool, and this is going to be the start of the shell. Okay. So this little sphere right here. This is a new subtool. So I need to turn on symmetry again, hit X. Now I can keep sculpting. Okay. That's not good. I'm smoothing right here, but it's not actually doing anything. What should I do? Yeah, Dynamash it. When in doubt, Dynamash. Actually, that's not always good advice. Don't always do that. And I'm gonna do another one. It's gonna be the bottom shell. Let's do another sphere. Bring it down. Hit X again. Make sure we got symmetry turned on. No. Now, once you've done that for the document, you're good to go. That's gonna have to kind of get shoved in between the front legs. Do that Dynamash. This is gonna have to come up on the sides. Kind of looks like a turtle or a tortoise if it was a dinosaur. Okay. And then take that tail. I'll bring that I feel like if it's gonna be walking, I mean, that's a lot of weight in the front, so I feel like it almost needs like a ton of weight in the back just to balance it. All right, let's run the Dynamash, bring it back out.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how did you create more spaces on the mesh again?
Dynamash.
The mesh? Okay.
Yeah, because right now I'm just blocking out the main form. And that's what I'm using Dynamash for. It's allowing me to retopologize on the fly. There we go. Okay. So tell you what, I'm gonna pause here. Why don't you guys take a few minutes and start blocking out some forms here? We'll take about 10 minutes or so and see where you guys get, okay? Then I'll pick up and continue for a little bit more. And I'll walk around, check on you guys, okay? That's the construction method we're talking about. That's what I want. So if you want to, is this what you were trying to solve with? Yeah. Okay. So let's go to subject.
Oh, I'm gonna go over how to do eyeballs properly. So we're actually making subjects and then the lines inside of it. Click on skull. So, guys, when I'm sculpting, a couple things, for things like eyeballs, to move around inside of our heads, those I always end up making into separate subtools. So at this point, I would not worry about these sculpting eyeballs yet. Eyeballs are going to be moved. For insect eyes, I might go ahead and sculpt those on the same subtool, because again, those don't necessarily move. Things like teeth, tongues, things like that, I usually will keep those separate as well, just because those are a little bit easier to get inside the mouth and work separately with them. So I would try to separate it out as much as you could. In terms of posing, so with this character, I'm posing him in what I refer to as a neutral stance. So basically just, just the character just standing naturally. So I would not be posing your characters or sculpting your characters in any sort of dynamic pose. We're trying to keep everything pretty symmetrical, pretty neutral, mainly for the purpose that if you ever wanted to rig this character for animation, and it was in a dynamic, non-neutral, non-symmetrical pose, it would just make it a lot more difficult. So we always want to try to achieve that. It's better to sculpt the character first, neutrally, and then pose it, than it is to do it the opposite direction. Chuck, did you need something?
I'm checking out walls for NASA displaying of artwork. Who's in the next class at the
Meg. It's Meg and then Melissa.
Is this a corporate?
I think so.
Right, that's all. There you go.
Uh-huh. Let's go and continue. So one last things I did was I ran a Dynamash just to kind of unify all the spheres together. And so I can, is it a quick question?
Yeah, how do we need arm for this?
Okay.
I'm using arm for this.
You're drawing the spheres out and then you're stretching them out.
So first I draw this first.
By the way, guys, I do have those videos on the module as well that you also can watch, and I'm also recording this. So just FYI, okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, so let's go and keep working. So I'm gonna start filling in some of these areas and playing with these proportions. So let's do a clay buildup. And I'm gonna start filling in some of these sections right here. I'm gonna turn off the shell and start building up, make this boy real thick. I mean, I feel like he's got to have like something, right? Because I mean, he's gonna be carrying this really huge shell around. Yeah.
How do you combine the primitives again?
Dynamash. Just running a Dynamash combines them. Okay. So his legs may end up looking a little bit elephanty. Okay. Right through here, you see how I'm sculpting on this side, but it's pulling a little bit on the other side. I'm gonna go under brush, auto masking, backface mask. And that's gonna keep these thin areas from getting pulled through on the other side. It's gonna be real useful later on. Okay. So if I have a predatory land tortoise that's walking on two legs, that means its front two legs are free. What in the world do you think it does with those two legs? It grabs things. So I wonder what in the world a tortoise with hands would actually look like. I mean, if you look up, have you guys ever looked at like tortoise legs? By the way, I don't know if you guys can faintly hear it, but Meg's class is like applauding like every like 5 minutes. Can you guys hear that at all?
No, I'm not really difficulty. How do you delete a primitive shape that you put on?
The one like you just drew on? Or is it one that's like you drew on a few steps, like a few other
I
primitives
just
back?
put it, like I just drew on it and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 on here.
Control Z, undo. So pretty thick at the bottom, a little bit narrower at the top. That work for you? Should just undo what you did last. Presley didn't do it. That's not a no, so it's still there. If you hit Control Z a few times, does it take it off? Because that should be just undoing, going through your undo history.
Yeah, it's not taking them off at all.
Are they rotating with the rest of the object? No? Like, what does it look like?
It's literally, it's just this. Little, and then
Which one do you want
I want to remove all these. Here's what I had.
Okay, that's a valid question, so let's talk about that. So she has an issue where she has spheres that she wants to take out, but they're not removing. One thing you want to do, let's do, did you use like control and then move them to repeat it, or were you just drawing?
I was just drawing.
Okay.
Unless it was repeated, but I don't think it was repeated. Because if it was,
So let's say we have all of these.
yep, that's what I did.
Okay. So if you go to the polyframe button right here, you'll see they're all slightly different shades. They should be slightly different shades. You can see that right here. You go to your move tool, hold down control, and let's click on one of these. It should mask out the original, but then you see these new ones should be highlighted. Are those the one you want to delete, or is it not highlighting or is it highlighting the wrong ones?
It says that the current active undo history is not the latest one.
It's fine. Yes, just click OK.
Okay.
So I'm just going to move on because this will answer your question. So
It's not letting
if this is, do you have the move tool selected?
Yeah. I do.
Okay.
Not-
Turn polyframe on. Now hold down control. You can click on these objects and it'll mask off some, it'll highlight some. That's what we're looking for. Now, if you notice, all of these are highlighting, but maybe I only want to get rid of one of these. Okay.
Mine are not all highlighted.
Okay. So I'm going to go under polyframe, or not polyframe. I'm going to go under poly group right here. I'm going to go to auto groups at the top of poly groups. That's going to change all the colors. So that means like each one of these objects is a different poly group. And then that means I can hold down control and click on each one of these and they'll highlight individually versus as a group. Okay. I want to get rid of just that one. So with that one basically selected, again, holding down control, tapping on the one I want. I'm going to go over to subtool and you'll see a split option. So I'm going to do split masked. So it's going to take whatever's been masked and split it off. So this guy's isolated. If you check your subtools, you'll see, again, we
You know,
split
it
that
says,
off.
Mesh must be partially masked before executing this function.
Partially masked to split.
Yeah,
Means you didn't actually mask anything.
that's the thing. It wasn't clicking on anything.
Okay. Let me get through this and then we can talk about that because I need to get through it. Okay. This right here is highlighted. That again, that's the subtool I want to delete. Then I'll go to delete and I'll get rid of specifically that one that I inserted. It's a bit convoluted, but that's how you go about it. Another option for deleting is you can hold down control. I'm going to do a lasso. for control or for masking. I'm gonna mask off what I want to get rid of. So this part of the mesh is masked. I'm gonna go to split, masked. So now the front half is a subtool, the back half is a subtool. And then delete. And now that part is deleted. So that's another option. So either one of those approaches should work for you. You can mask off what you want to delete, split it and delete it, or you can do the poly groups, and that makes selection just a little bit easier in my opinion. But either one of those will work for you. Okay. So back to the sculpting. I'll take the move brush. I'll take this guy. I'm gonna make his forearms a little bit longer. And a little bit uneven right there. So I just ran another Dynamash. Let's go ahead and fill in that neck area. So in between these little spheres, I'm just kind of filling it in. Okay. Let's look it up. Come on. Out of there. All right. Tortoise heads. Tortoise heat. That's not what I'm looking for. Mhm. That's pretty adorable. All right. We'll go with that. Grab that move brush. And I'm going to be cutting a mouth open in here. I'm not going to be using the same method I had for last class when I was demoing. All right, so I'm gonna pull this out. I think the head's a little bit triangular shaped. Pretty flat on the front. Dude has a very strong jawline. I'm just kind of flipping around at this point, just kind of playing around with that head shape, just pulling it out, getting it to match that kind of general profile that I'm seeing here, that kind of trapezoidal rectangular profile. And then for that head, for that mouth shape, do a little quick save. So before, I've done it where I did the mask and then inverted and then kind of pushed in to get that interior part of the mouth. This time, I'm going to actually use one of the trim tools, actually cut a hole for the mouth and create it that way. It's just a different approach to doing it. So trim rectangle, I'm going to change it to a lasso. I'm sorry, not trim, knife. I'll use that knife. And then I'm going to do just a thin line, and we'll see how well this works. Looked amazingly well, just went in the wrong direction. So let's do undo, Control Shift. And actually, so the knife tool, it's kind of weird, okay? The knife tool depends on which direction you go in, on what it considers subtractive or reductive or whatever, where it's going to leave the majority of the skull behind or where it's going to actually cut something away. So let's try it this way. Okay, so that's not the right way. So I just went from top to bottom. Let's go from bottom to top. There we go. All right, so if we take a look at the polygroups, you'll see that the head itself is kind of this bright purple, but the part that I just cut is this kind of turquoise, aqua foam, whatever you call it, light green color right here. And so this is actually going to be kind of important because what I want to do is actually isolate this area so I can actually sculpt on the inside of the mouth. Because right now it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to get inside of there. It's going to be a little impossible. So let's go and do Control. I'm going to use my Move tool. And before, we know that with the Move tool selected, and if I click on one poly group versus another, just as demonstrated a few minutes ago, it's going to isolate and mask off the other poly groups. So I would like to get inside of this one. So I can flip that. Now I can sculpt inside of here. So that's nice, that's helpful. You'll see I'm still kind of having a little bit of an issue there. It's a real thin mouth, it's a little bit of a challenge. So let's try this. Control Shift. I was on a knife. Let's do Select instead. And let's do let's keep it on a rectangle. So I'm going to do selection. You'll see I can basically isolate part of this. It's not giving me quite everything I want. Let's change that stroke type to a lasso. There we go. And then let's isolate this polygroup again by holding down Control with the Move tool and then tapping, and I'll mask out the rest of this. So that when I sculpt, I'm not affecting anything up here. It's just everything right here. Just trying to keep it from cutting through. All right, so that was the top one. Let's do the bottom. Bring that down on the inside. Dynamash. All right, cool. So just kind of went through and smoothed everything out. Real lightly, I'm going to go through and kind of smooth out the mouth region right here. It's getting a little serrated for my taste. Okay. All right. That'll. Any questions so far? Yeah. How do I use the what tool? Knife tool. So it's Control Shift. And then you get this little subsection right here. So knife has knife circle, curve, lasso, and rectangle. The only difference is the stroke type. So you can kind of actually like transform this into all four depending on what stroke you choose. So let's say knife lasso. Control Shift, and you can use it to cut through an object. So let's do like that. And it'll just cut cleanly through it. And then if you go the opposite direction, it'll isolate what you lassoed and it'll cut through it. So it actually deletes it. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
So on my thing, only has like one little spot selected, everything else is like shadowed out. How do I select everything to be adding depth to it?
I mean, just to release the mask,
Yeah, I really.
you just hold down Control and swipe off the mesh and it'll release your mask. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do some eyeballs. So I'm gonna do 2 spheres. And let's go and put in a couple spheres on either side. Somewhere kind of like that. And then I want these spheres to be separate, like I mentioned before, but they are part of the original subtool since I did an insert mesh. So with these being not highlighted and the rest of the body is masked off. So again, these are selectable. I'm gonna go to split masked. And so then you'll see that the eyeballs are now their own subtool. So now they're protected from any of the sculpting that I'll do on the body mesh. Turn that eye back on so I can see them. All right. I'm gonna start sculpting around the eyes. So for the eye sockets, I like to put a little bit of depth in here. So you can hold down Alt, essentially to dig in, or you can just do a Z sub. And I'm just gonna dig in around that eye. Doesn't have to be the full depth of the eye. I'm just doing it just a little bit around here just to give the semblance of a socket. You'll see kind of around that area kind of falls backwards. And then right here, I'm gonna start building it up. And kind of start trying to like build up like that eye shape where it has the inner corner of the eye, kind of at the bottom, like bottom left corner, or right, yeah, bottom left corner of the eye. And then the outer corner of the eye is at the top right. Let's turn off transparency. Smooth that out every once in a while.
Such that the eyes separate from the actual body
Mhm.
to,
Split. So after I did the insert, I did a split.
okay, is that in the geometry?
It's under subtools. Subtool.
So,
So I think I got that mounted up fairly well. Let's do a mask, freehand. I'm just going to kind of protect a little bit of this area right here. That's gonna be just so I can go in, really kind of pull on some of this. Let's check your other angles. We want to be able to see out the front, so make sure that lid's not too far forward. And this is going to up and around.
so is there a way to add the lasso tool? Because I look at my.
To add the what tool?
The lasso tool. 'Cause
Lasso is just a stroke type. So the lasso is generally going to be for trim, knife, or masking.
Yeah, because I don't have that in my thing. It's not in here.
Are you trying to do it for what tool? You need to activate like your mask tool if you're going to use it for your mask. Then you look here under your stroke and it's under here. If you're doing it for your knife, again, you need to look under strokes, but like general, just regular brushes,
Yeah,
that's not going to be there for your stroke type.
gotcha. So like knife or kind of.
Yeah, that's going to be a control shift. Okay. Now run a Dynamash. Smooth it out. All right, questions at this point, guys? Okay. I'm gonna pause here for today. So let's have you guys work until the end of class, okay? I'll walk around. All right. So for next class, we'll be working again on this sculpting class. Who's lost? Who are you talking to?
I just need to know how to make another separate curve outputs. So I'm using that to make the things. And then gonna go in there with a placeholder. Okay.
What's the word? You go under brushes. Up to the top. That's nice. Brushes are asking inside this mask. Not you from another. That's just the brush. Backwards, that's not backwards. Scroll down. Yeah, you got it right. It's more down. Snake. Question. Snake? Yeah. Honestly, I mean, what is your artwork for this thing? Oh, I would not say you're there yet. So think of this as like a light drawing. You're just getting the initial form. We're not to the point where we're like big detail like this. Okay, so get the rest of this form in there. Focus on that. Okay. Also, if you see the you have to do. Those are slides. Yeah. A little bit more descriptive with actually like what the lights look like. So are they like tendrils or are they like starfish legs, something like that? Think about how it actually moves around. Like, I'm not sure.
Like, you see how it attached, how this part attaches to the ring thing. So it's like when this thing lowers itself down, then it starts to like shape and move and then prance around.
So are these hard?
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. Work. You'll be done with those glasses over, aren't you? Maybe. Pretty good. Something interesting.
hate it. I love it.
Yep.
It's a different stroke direction. So like, if you go one direction, it'll isolate what you're lassoing. If you go the other direction, it'll exclude it. It's a little tricky to, yeah, but honestly, if it doesn't work, it's gonna be opposite. Direction for the stroke.
So right here, these are shown to her.
Yeah, just hold down control and swipe off the mesh. Yeah, flip, drag. Flip, drag. There you go.
Oh.
This has nothing to do with making creatures. I just think this is a cool brush. It's called Spiral. You can use it to make some cool spiral stuff. I started using this. I had a guy that wanted me to do. Apparently, there's like an X-Man character that like makes his own magical weapons, like out of like energy. And I don't know who he's called, but he wanted me to make those weapons for him. And this spiral thing like really helped out making like those energy effects. Pretty useful.
Have a question? If you don't have one, that's okay.
I mean, regarding ion signature,
What about Imm Primitives? Use them basically whenever you're putting in parts to your body. So you just kind of lay one in if you need to create an appendage.
if I were to need an appendage,
That's it. With some of you guys making insects, you're gonna make between 6 and 8 legs. Something to maybe consider is making one leg and then duplicating that leg multiple times. You don't have to remake the same leg over and over and over again. Just to speed your process up a little bit. So you might lay in, maybe make a new subtool, and then create that leg using the primitives, and then sculpt it up however you want. And then you can use that move tool with the control, and then just drag it and duplicate it 2 or 3 more times. Just to save you guys some effort there. Does that make sense? Yeah.
how do you create another object? Okay, so this is
So if you have a pen, just go and make this up. Yes, spheres. Okay.
Like once like I did it just certain size of handle.
Not with that brush. Mammals? Water petals, mammals. Dogs, horses, cows, these are all sick, rats, mice. There's an interesting around.
I didn't even do that when I was looking at art for this, and I was like, I'm not gonna touch these photos at the time. I don't love to. Yeah. Virtual. When is this class? Oh, 50. It's 10:41.
Well, we got 9 minutes left, so if you guys want to go and take some time to wrap up, get to a pausing place and put your tablets up, that'd be great. And then we can pick up next class. Say what?
Almost small person.
How small is the small question?
Really small.
Very small. Okay, I'll give you a very small answer.
So, last time when I was mowing with Zbrush, I had my figure
in terms of the turntable, it was turned out of frame, and it was because some of the videos that I have models were correctly. How do I prevent myself from drawing my models?
As long as your character has proper symmetry, it should rotate perfectly fine. Sometimes though, if a character is very long, like say this guy, it may rotate out of frame even if it is symmetrical. So if we take a look at the movie, let's just flip it over here. We can do a turntable, document, large. And usually what I'll try to do is make sure my center of mass is, or my pivot point's in the center of the body. So it'll rotate on that center. Sometimes I've found if I, okay. Depending on how I position the character, it may end up rotating kind of weirdly. So sometimes I'll just click and that actually changes my pivot point. So if I just click on the head, you'll see it rotates based off the head. Or if I click on the tail, it rotates based off the tail. And so then if I click on the middle, it should do that turntable based on where I last set that pivot point. Guys, remember to save your stuff to a thumb drive if you're working on this computer. I don't recommend saving these to the desktops. It is not, usually not enough space for you guys on there. What just said, thumb drives. Save it to a thumb drive.